I feel the need to reread. And I am Rose, I am at home, and today I wanted to talk about books that I really want to reread. It's come up in other videos before where I've mentioned it, and I've done some rereading recently and absolutely loved it. Loved getting to go back into those worlds, loved remembering all of the things that I enjoyed. So this is a list of books, A, that I know that I love, and B, that I plan to read again, many of them so I can go on in the series without having forgotten anything that happened earlier. So let's go ahead and get started. First, I need my actual glasses. Okay. My first pick for books that I need to reread is a mystery, and it is Paige Shelton's Thin Ice. I really enjoyed this. It's a suspenseful, kind of thrillery mystery, if I'm remembering correctly. I'm going to actually be reading you the description for these because I don't want to mess them up based on multiple-year-old memories. Okay. Beth Rivers, known to the world as Elizabeth Fairchild, has spent years as a best-selling novelist. Her twisty, page-turning thrillers have garnered a legion of fans, but unfortunately, her storytelling landed her in an unbelievable tale of her own, a situation even more terrifying than she could have dreamed. Crazed Elizabeth Fairchild superfan Levi Brooks stalked and kidnapped Beth, holding her captive inside a van for 3 days. She escaped by throwing herself from the speeding van, suffering a severe head injury and memory loss. Scarred and still healing from her injuries, she secretly escapes to the beautiful and very remote Benedict, Alaska. It's the only place she can be sure no one will find her. But just before Beth arrives, the already small population of Benedict was reduced by 1. Linda Rafferty's death was ruled a suicide, but no one in the close-knit community quite believes that conclusion, even the sheriff. While she waits for her attacker to be apprehended in the lower 48, Beth takes on a project to revamp the Benedict Town newspaper. She knows enough to go where the story is, and there's clearly one behind Linda's death. A rumor of murder spread. Suspicion falls upon the felon staying at a local halfway house, and Beth herself. Intrigued by both the mystery and the wary folks who call Benedict home, Beth starts asking questions, only to find her investigation stirring up memories she'd much rather have stayed forgotten. Okay, so this isn't one where I can say I think I'm going to love it. I know I'm going to love it. I know I did love it the first time. Even reading that description, there were parts that I don't remember. I know this goes on. There's multiple books that come after this. I have the next one, so I've got to reread this one so I can continue this amazing series. The next thing that I really want to reread is Martha Wells' All Systems Red. It's super short, so this isn't going to take much time at all. But it's so much fun. I know I can probably do this in an afternoon and be able to get back into the series. So if you are unfamiliar, hopefully this one is a little shorter. In a corporate-dominated spacefaring future, planetary missions must be approved and supplied by the company. Exploratory teams are accompanied by company-supplied security robots for their own safety. But in a society where contracts are awarded to the lowest bidder, safety isn't a prime concern. On a distant planet, a team of scientists are conducting surface tests, shadowed by their company-supplied bot, a self-aware C-unit that has hacked its own government module and refers to itself, though never out loud, as Murderbot. Scornful of humans, all it really wants is to be left alone long enough to figure out who it is. But when a neighboring mission goes dark, it's up to the scientists and their murder bot to get to the truth. So the main thing that sticks in my head is the character. I remember the character so well. I remember loving the character so well. The story part, though, is the part that I know I've got holes in my memory, and so I need to reread it. I think I've already read the first 3 or so. Like I said, they're super short, so that should get me to where I'm caught up with what I've previously read, and then can get into the newer books in the series, because I believe there is another one coming out soon. The next pick is one that I don't think I gave 5 stars when I read it the first time, but it's one that I keep thinking about, one that keeps popping up in my head, and so it's one that I feel like a reread, I'm going to love it a lot more than I did the first time, and it might get me interested in reading the rest of the series. And so it is A Memory Called Empire. This is sci-fi, which is not my go-to genre. I'm great with fantasy. I'm intrigued by sci-fi, but it's not a go-to for me. I go more fantasy things than sci-fi, and this is definitely sci-fi. So, Ambassador Mahit Dasmer travels to the capital of the interstellar Texakalani Empire, eager to take up her new post. She arrives only to discover that her predecessor has died, and no one will admit that his death wasn't accidental, or that Mahit might be next. Now, Mahit must discover who was behind the murder, rescue herself, and save her small but fiercely independent mining station from Texacalan's unceasing expansion, all while navigating an alien culture that is all too seductive, engaging in intrigues of her own, and hiding a deadly technological secret, one that might spell the end of her station and her way of life, or rescue it from annihilation. Okay, that's an interesting way of describing this because I remember big things about this that were not mentioned there, and I don't think they're spoilers. It is one that requires a lot of focus, but I keep thinking about it. I keep wanting to go back to this world and jump into it again, and so I think a reread is the best way to do that instead of trying to go to the second book. So this is on this list, and I'm really excited to jump into this world again. For my next pick, I actually mentioned it about a week or so ago in my video on books set in the apocalypse. I totally suggest you go and watch that video. It had great suggestions in it, and if you like suggestions like these, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I'd love to have you come back week after week and we get to talk books. But for this book, it is the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. I own the next book in the series. This world is so complex. I don't trust that I'm going to be able to fully follow the second one without going back and doing a reread on this one. So this is also a fantasy with a bit of a sci-fi twist. So it's very complex. There's multiple perspectives. It shifts a lot. It's a lot to follow, but it's so incredibly well done. I'm going to read the back, but it's pretty sparse in the explanation. Okay, this is the way the world ends for the last time. It starts with the Great Red Rift, across the heart of the world's sole continent, spewing ash that blots out the sun. It starts with death, with a murdered son and a missing daughter. It starts with betrayal. A long dormant wound rising up to fester. This is the stillness, a land familiar with catastrophe where the power of the earth is wielded as a weapon and where there is no mercy. It is really good. I don't have to tell you I think it's good. It is really good. It is very complex. Her world building is amazing. She's on Masterclass and she goes into detail in how she builds worlds. And I've watched her Masterclass and was just blown away, but realized, yes, it is that complex and she really does do all of this. So I strongly suggest anything N.K. Jemisin, but I cannot wait, and this might even be a November reread for me because it's nice and chunky and I want to do all the nice big chunky things in November. So you might be seeing this again really soon. You might be seeing a theme here. I want to reread these books because they are starting or part of a series that I want to continue, but I read them so long ago that I'm not sure I'm going to remember enough to continue in the series, and that also for this one, and it is Mark Lawrence's Red Sister. I loved this. It was great. It's assassin nuns. What's not to love? It's a school to teach you how to be an assassin nun, and hijinks ensue all over the place. It is the longest in the series, and it was so much fun from beginning to end. I really wish that I had just gone ahead and continued the series then, but I thought, well, I'll take a break, and now I feel like it's been a bit long to jump in. I'm gonna forget some of this, and I might needed to know it for that. So this is on the reread pile. Let me tell you what it's about. I was born for killing. The gods made me to ruin. At the covenant of sweet mercy, girls are raised to be killers. Some have inherited old bloods, which bestow upon them special talents. Sweet mercy hones its novice's skills with care. It takes 10 years to educate a red sister in the deadly arts of blade and fist. But even the mistresses of sword and shadow don't fully understand what they have purchased with Nona Gray is brought to their halls as a child of 8, accused of murder, but guilty of worse. In her short life, Nona has made powerful enemies, and despite the security and isolation of the convent, her violent past will one day find her out. Nona must face her demons and become a deadly assassin if she is to survive. As good as that sounds is as good as this is. It's amazing, and I really want to know what happens after. I'm going to tell you, of all of these to reread, I probably remember the most of this, but I also liked the world, and as odd as that sounds, where an 8-year-old has to go learn how to be an assassin to survive, that's a weird world to like, but I did absolutely love the world building, and I'm excited to jump back in and be in there again before I move on with the next. The next one I picked, it's probably been the longest since I read it of these things, or it's close to, and it is R.F. Kuang's The Poppy Wars. So I bought and read this when I first came out. That was 2018. We've been through a lot of world and life and events since 2018, so I don't have many memories of this beyond kind of the broad strokes of what's happening, but I do remember absolutely loving it. I have all 3 in this that match this cover, so I really want to reread this so that I can get to those. So what happens in the Poppy Wars? When Rin aced the Kenju, the empire-wide test to find the most talented youth to study at the academies, it was a shock to everyone. To the test officials who couldn't believe a war orphan from Rooster Province could pass without cheating, to Rin's guardians, who always thought they'd be able to marry Rin off to further their criminal enterprise, and to Rin herself, who realized that she is now finally free of the servitude and despair that has made up her daily existence. That she got into Signgard, the most elite military school in the Nikara Empire, was even more surprising. But surprises aren't always good. Being a dark-skinned peasant girl from the south is not an easy thing at Signgard. Rin is targeted from the outset by rival classmates because of her color, poverty, and gender. Driven to desperation, she discovers she possesses a lethal, unearthly power, an aptitude for the nearly mythical art of shamanism. Exploring the depths of her gift with the help of a seemingly insane teacher and psychoactive substances, Rin learns that gods long thought dead are very much alive, and that mastering control over her powers could mean more than just surviving school. For even though the Nikara Empire is at peace, the Federation of Mujin still lurks across the narrow sea. The militarily advanced Federation occupied the Nikara Empire for decades after the First Poppy War, and only barely lost the continent in the second. And while most of the people in the Empire would rather forget their painful history, a few are aware that a third Poppy War is just a spark away. Rin's shamanistic powers may be the only way to save her people, but as she finds out more about the god who has chosen her, the vengeful phoenix, she fears that winning the war may cost her her humanity, and it may already be too late. It's really good. It's really involved. It's got the whole like going to school to learn to fight, and I love that. I love those types of things. So I am very, very excited to have this on my I need to reread it list. I hope you really enjoyed that. I really did. I am so excited to get to all of these. Right now I am reading my October TBR and it's been wonderful so far. If you're wondering what I'm reading, go ahead and watch this. I'm terrible at remembering which side it's on. Watch the video that I'm going to put here. It's going to be my October TBR, and make sure you subscribe so you can see my reviews and thoughts of those books at the end of the month. And in the meantime, I hope that you have an absolutely amazing rest of your week and that you get to read or reread some really amazing books. Bye, y'all.